Belize's underwater world is home to colorful, interesting, terrifying, and awe-inspiring marine life. But experts say that these incredible creatures and their habitats will disappear in the event of a single oil spill. The image you're looking at is the last offshore oil rig to work in Belizean waters. In 2007, Island Oil set up a jack-up platform in the shallow waters of Monkey River.
This is what they are being allowed to do, was strapping together 40-foot shipping containers filled with styrofoam, and that was used to float the drill rig. How do you do that? How do you string together shipping containers and consider that an adequate platform for open ocean drilling?
According to Dr. Melanie McFeel, the director of the Healthy Reefs for Healthy People initiative, such precedence does not inspire confidence in the regulation of offshore drilling.
To some degree, exploratory drilling is always drilling in the dark. You know, they have some data that they're looking at and they're hoping to find something, but you know, it's a gamble, and that's why it's people that invest money in this are kind of like, they're risk takers, they're gambling, they're hoping to hit it rich.
For decades, major oil companies have explored Belize's land and sea searching for petroleum. So far, only Belize Natural Energy has discovered crude oil in commercial quantities. But local government experts believe another find is imminent. And while the oil optimists are hoping for the best, the environmentalists are bracing for the worst, especially when it comes to offshore drilling. They contend accidents are inevitable.
I don't think there's any way to prevent them because you're drilling in the dark. You really don't know what you're drilling into. And when you hit it, it can have more pressure than you imagined. Things can be different than you thought they would, and then your equipment isn't sufficient.
McFeel argues that finding and producing oil is an inherently dirty business.
You're leaving all this debris and kind of construction type material. So that's happening at the site of drilling, but there's all kinds of there's increased shipping traffic, there's accidents, you know, shipping type accidents that are more prone to happen. And there would be pipeline, if you got into production, there would be massive pipelines on the seabed taking this oil back to the land. We just have no confidence that things are going to be done up to standard based on, you know, the kind of actions that are being taken right now and what has happened in the past.
The oil industry, especially in the offshore, when it comes to offshore exploration and production, it's very risky, just like with a lot of other industries.
Director of Petroleum Andre Cho believes Belize can strike a balance between petroleum and industries such as tourism and fisheries. He strongly disputes the environmentalists' position on the issue. In fact, when we asked him about the island oil rig...
No. See, that's what I'm talking about. And they should come here for the correct information and get schooled.
Chief Environmental Officer Martin Alegria was more generous than his colleague.
I wouldn't doubt it the way how perhaps in the past things were being done without environmental consciousness. But what I can tell you is yesterday, today, and perhaps even tomorrow, those types of, certain types of activities or methodologies that were acceptable may not be now.
For the record, Cho says Island Oil had a typical shallow water jack-up platform that was constructed along accepted international industry standards.
Yeah, what we did was because we don't have personnel that specialize in offshore rigs and drilling, we hired a company and paid them $10,000 the government, to come and inspect the rig. That's an example of what we do to fill in the gaps. We'd hire international people that are trained and qualified to do these things.
As for the comparisons between the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico and potential danger to Belize, Cho cites dramatic differences in depths and pressures between the two locations. Furthermore, he maintains gross negligence was to blame.
Yes, people will say, well, that can happen here. A company can come and be negligent and we are sleeping behind our desk. But that's why the NGOs play an important role in ensuring that we are applying the highest requirements and standards for these companies and ensuring that we're doing our job, and they can do that by working closely with us.
And Cho goes even further, contending that conservationists should focus on present threats to Belize's marine environment, such as from the shipping and cruise ship industries, as well as from the tanker which transports 65,000 barrels of oil twice a month from the Big Creek port.
So what that tells you, that surprised me, that shocks me. That's why I'm saying they have the wrong mentality. They should be working with the government on putting proper things, the minimum measures in place to deal with that spill if that tanker runs into the reef. That worries me every day. That they're not doing that. It worries me that they are not focusing on that.
It has been on the radar for a while, but it has not been addressed, which is what raised the red flag for us when we were talking about offshore oil exploration. How can we not address a very simple and present threat? And we're looking at exploding that threat by adding on artificial structures within our barrier reef and within our marine systems.
The environmentalists maintain all threats to Belize's marine environment need to be addressed in a comprehensive manner with proper policies, safety measures, and legislation before any drilling is allowed.
These goods and services that the reef is providing, we just take a lot of it for granted. And having a major accident or an industry that's growing and doing a lot of marine construction and alteration of the seabed and shoreline, those are all things that degrade the reef, degrade the mangroves further, and then increase the potential for a major disaster.
Oil companies own the rights to explore for oil in nearly all of Belize.
Inherent concerns about offshore drilling has prompted the environmental community to launch a national public awareness campaign calling for a moratorium on offshore drilling, a ban on drilling in protected areas, and a referendum on the issue.
Protected means protected.
When we hear oil, it's an added concern, and a major concern at that.
Nellie Katsim is the executive director of the Southern Environmental Association. Based on her team's experience enforcing fisheries laws in Belize's southern waters, Katsim advises an abundance of caution when it comes to offshore drilling.
When you look at oil in particular at a national level, not only within the marine context, but at a national level, there may be areas and there may be possibility for exploration. But let's step back, take a look at what currently exists, what mechanisms are in place. Can we realistically deal with the proper management of oil exploration in our country at this juncture? And if not, then let's look at what needs to go into place before we consider and go down that path.
What we're doing it with the environment in mind. To develop a country, you need revenues. And just like with every sector, every industry that has it, they have their risks and you just need to do it properly.
You'll end up with somebody having a resort or a little eco lodge right next to a big barge with a docking station for the oil transport industry. It's an ugly, dirty business. And if you look at photos from the Gulf of Mexico, there's just pipelines and barges and equipment and industrialization everywhere. And I don't think that that's what anybody really wants our coastline to look like.
I am confident and comfortable that Belizeans are one people when it comes to the protection of our beloved Belize barrier reef. So that being the number one issue, cross-party lines, cross economic scales, we already said that will be one of the primary factors in determining the way forward, not only in the petroleum sector, in tourism, in industry, etc., etc.
While there are opposing interests and very different best and worst case scenarios, the bottom line is that vast areas of Belize's offshore territory have been parceled out to oil companies in sovereign, enforceable agreements. The final verdict will pivot on whether a groundswell of popular opposition can convince policymakers to focus on the risks rather than the possible rewards of offshore drilling. Reporting for 7 News, I am Janelle Chanona.